Hi everyone, I am Pete, and over the past 30 years, I've been responsible for managing multi-billion dollar government contracts across both domestic and international theaters, spanning defense acquisition programs, critical infrastructure development, and large-scale federal procurement initiatives. That experience has given me direct insight into how appropriation cycles create distinct competitive windows for contractors who understand positioning strategy. If you've spent the last year and a half preparing for a third-party cybersecurity maturity model certification, I need you to hear this before you make another move. On July 13th, 2026, the Department of War suspended Phase 2 of the CMMC program. That's the mandatory third-party assessment that was set to become a condition of award on November 10th of this year. A lot of contractors are hearing suspended and assuming this whole program just went away. It didn't. In the next few minutes, I'll walk you through exactly what changed, what absolutely did not change, why the Pentagon hit pause in the first place, and the 5 things you should be doing right now before the review wraps up this fall. Let's start with what actually happened, because the headlines got this a little messy. On July 13th, the Department of War's Chief Information Officer signed 2 separate memos. The first immediately halted CMMC Phase 2, which was the requirement for a certified third-party assessor, known as a C3PAO, to independently verify your Level 2 compliance before you could even be awarded a contract. The second memo told contracting officers how to handle solicitations and existing contracts that already had Phase 2 language baked in. Phases 3 and 4, the later more advanced stages of the rollout, were frozen right along with it. This didn't come from some mid-level policy office. It came directly from Department of War leadership, tied explicitly to the Secretary's acquisition transformation strategy, and it opened a formal 60-day top-to-bottom review of the entire CMMC program. Now, before you breathe a sigh of relief, let's be precise about what this pause actually covers, because getting this wrong could cost you. Here's what's suspended: the mandatory third-party Level 2 certification requirement and the hard November 10th deadline that came with it. That's it. Here's what is still fully active right now. With zero interruption, your Phase 1 self-assessment requirements, your DFARS 252.204-7012 clause obligations, your NIST SP800-171 Revision 2 security controls, your SPRS score postings, and your annual affirmations. None of that paused. The government did not lower the cybersecurity bar here. It only paused one specific mechanism for proving, through an outside auditor, that you actually clear that bar. So why would the Pentagon pull back a rule it spent years building? 2 numbers tell most of the story. First, the Department of War's own data, pulled in part from the Small Business Administration, suggests that future CMMC phases could cost small and mid-sized defense contractors more than $7 billion a year in compliance spending. Second, there's a real bottleneck in the system. More than 100,000 companies across the defense industrial base need a Level 2 assessment, but fewer than 100 authorized C3PAOs currently exist to perform them. Do that math, and you can see why officials were worried about locking innovative small businesses out of the defense market entirely. In the department's own words, the goal here is removing barriers to defense industrial base expansion, not backing away from cybersecurity. To make this simple, here's exactly where the program stands right now, phase by phase. Phase 1. Self-assessment, fully active, live since November of last year, and it is not going anywhere. Phase 2. Third-party certification through a C3PAO, suspended as of July 13th, 2026. Phase 3. Government-led Level 3 assessments for the most sensitive programs, frozen along with Phase 2. Phase 4. Full implementation across every applicable Department of War contract, also frozen. To sum it up in one line, one phase is live and being enforced, and 3 are on hold pending that 60-day review. Here's the part almost nobody is saying loud enough, and it's the part that should really get your attention. Enforcement did not pause along with the program. The Department of Justice is still actively pursuing False Claims Act cases against contractors who misrepresent their cybersecurity posture to the government. Just this past June, a defense contractor agreed to pay over $500,000 to resolve exactly that kind of liability. And separately, federal prosecutors indicted a former senior manager at a government contractor on charges of government fraud, wire fraud, and obstructing a federal audit, all tied to falsified cybersecurity compliance claims. With the fewer outside assessors double-checking your work during this pause, your own self-attestation carries more weight and more risk than it did a year ago. There are 4 dates to keep on your calendar. July 13th, the suspension was announced and the CMMC Reform Task Force was established. August 14th, the deadline for industry to submit written feedback on cost drivers and administrative burden through the official request for information, and that deadline has already passed. Mid-September. That's when the task force is expected to deliver its final report and recommendations to the department's CIO. And after that, honestly, nobody outside the Pentagon knows exactly what CMMC looks like next. A class deviation, a rewritten rule, a brand new timeline, or something we haven't seen yet are all realistically on the table. What should you be doing between now and when the report recommendations land? 5 things. 1. Keep your NIST 800-171 controls fully implemented. Do not stand down just because Phase 2 paused. The underlying 110 controls are still required and still enforced. 2. Keep your SPRS score current and your annual affirmation filed on schedule. 3. Audit every open P, OA, and M on your books. Items without a documented closeout plan risk real exposure and consequences, pause or no pause. 4. Keep an eye on the task force's findings because the RFI comment themes will directly shape whatever rule eventually replaces Phase 2. And 5, loop in your contracts team now to confirm exactly how this pause affects any options, recompetes, or flow-down clauses already in motion. The bottom line is just because the certification requirement paused, obligation to protect federal data did not.